Teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. Welcome, by the way, to the #1 show on innovative teamwork. Shout out to Podmatch. Again, you've hooked me up. You've aligned me with an incredible guest. To my regular listeners, you already know how I get down. Mr. ABC, always be connecting. And today, once again, as you can come to expect now on the Move Swiftly podcast, we have an absolutely incredible guest who is all about helping the business owners really understand that they can do anything and helping people understand that they're beings. And there's so many things that he's going to get into when it comes to all of the things that we're going to talk about. But before I make the intro too long, let me just bring him on. Mr. Brad, excuse me. Just saying, Mr. Brad Smith from Stellar Insight. Welcome to the Move Swiftly podcast.
Glad to be here.
So, Brad, I've been kind of thinking about this all day, and I know we talked last week a little bit now, and we were just kind of getting some talking points and getting ready for the interview. And one of the things that you said, I believe the number was 34 companies. I think you said you saw your dad run 34 companies, and then they all shut down or something like that. So I think that's the best place to start, because when it comes to, and just like me and most men who have their fathers in their lives, when it comes to what we do as adults, a lot of it stems from watching what their dad did. So the fact that you had brought that up when we were talking off camera, I really want to dig into that a little bit. And I think it's a great starting point when it comes to all the things that you do. So, the floor is yours to kind of elaborate on that.
Well, first off, 3 of those companies, so moved to Portland, Oregon when I was 12 with my family. And then Dad essentially started into starting companies. And he would start them, he'd pull together the team, and the group would go after what was needed to accomplish. But of those 34, 30 of them didn't have, maybe 29, didn't have all the pieces. And as a result of that, they didn't thrive, they didn't work well. But the 3 or 4 that had all the pieces, there's 3 of them are still running, like 60 years later. So,
what age were you when you were seeing them go through that? Because what I really want, especially the listeners going in, is whether you're a father listening to me or you're the young person that may be trying to find their footing in business, how do you think that kind of affected the way you grew up, and, seeing this one fail, seeing this one work, what not work? What are some of the takeaways as you kind of reflect and look back on it now that you would say helped you and then, made things a little difficult for you?
So I'm going to back up a step from that.
Yeah. This is all you.
When my dad raised us, so I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and I was 12 when he started into that. And I, from the time I was 12 until I was, mid-20s, I was involved in them one way or the other, either at home listening to the stories or meeting the people or actually working in a couple of them. But the key point in that was, before we got to that, my dad would always challenge us. He would say, here's a project, this is what the outcome looks like, here's the tools to do it, and this is how I want you to go about it. An example of that was when I was 17, had just gotten my license, 16 actually, and just gotten my license for driving. And he said, okay, I need you to go to Portland. Here's the pickup, here's a map, here's a list of the 11 or 12 places, maybe it was 16 places I want you to go. This is what I want you to pick up at each one.
But you mean you couldn't just put it in your GPS or anything?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You mean you didn't have cell phones back then and just plug it in and press it and get where you need to go?
We are so spoiled. We're so spoiled in this world, But it was like, here's the list, go do it.
Yeah.
And keep and no, there was no cell phone. So it was like, I was on my own. Right.
Right.
So we had to learn our way to solutions. So that's the background in that. All right.
Mhm.
Then when I got to a place where I had my bachelor's, I had my master's degree, my MBA in marketing and finance, then when I started seeing companies, so most of my bachelor's was in chemistry, chemical engineering, biochemistry.
Right.
Then I finished in business management, but I had this huge background in chemistry. One of the companies that I worked in, what was a company that did soil testing, among other things, but it did soil testing. So we'd take a sample of soil, we'd break it down, we'd pull out all the analyze all the different ingredients in it, and then we'd be able to tell the customer, well, your soil has this, and this in it, but it needs this and this. So do this to it. That was what we did. And going into these businesses, I would say, who are your problem child? That's how I started. Who are your problem children? Who are the people that can't get along or don't do the best they could? And so I would start in with that and hold out for them what was possible for each one of them. And yes, there's more story to it, but I want people to understand, and I'll go into the depths of my hole, if you would, the background in
Yes.
People are brilliant human beings. We are a brilliant creation. Humanity as a whole, all the individuals of us, we can't do anything. There's almost no person that gets to be a millionaire and certainly a billionaire by themselves. You can't do it. So it takes all of us that can be involved. So the background piece in this is when I was 18, fall term freshman year in Oregon State, I developed an ulcerated colon. And I didn't think that much about it, but I finally got to the doctor in December, and the doctor said to me in 3 sentences, and he changed my life. He said, gee, Brad, if you'd have waited 6 weeks to come see me, you'd have bled to death. So he had my attention. And then,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it was real too. I didn't know it was
Wow.
that. It was like, yeah, and then he laid it out. But then he said, you'll never eat strawberries, corn, or lettuce, and I like those things, ever again in your life. My 18-year-old brain said, fat chance, buddy, that's not happening. And then he said,
right.
You have a psychosomatic disease. And I knew what that meant. He said, your emotions affect the severity of your symptoms. And in that moment, I made 100% commitment to conquer the disease. I wasn't going to let it kill me. And I was facing that, right? So changed my diet, took the medicine, which didn't work, but took the medicine that he gave me, and then started processing, okay, what's the background in that? So you have to watch your physical body, then you have to watch your emotions if it's psychosomatic, and then back underneath everything, I eventually uncovered the idea that I could go back into my psychological history and rework the decisions that were holding me back and creating my disease. And over about a year, I got the bleeding stopped, right? It was intermittent, but stopped. And then over time, I got to the place where the pain, which was constant, stopped. But that took me years. And eventually, because it was still episodic, eventually I went back in with hypnosis at age 47 and reworked a specific memory of what I thought was my first spanking that I had consciously. I was about 12 months old, walking, and had the lid off the diaper pill. Mom spanked me, and I can understand it. She was completely freaked out by that. And I thought I went from unconditional love to conditional love. And that set up a situation which I eventually dug out and understood, that set up a situation where my thought about being in a romance or a romantic relationship, would put me in harm's way. And so I had a hard time with it. Yes, I wanted to be in a relationship. And so I worked through that. But what that taught me was watch what goes on in the world and comes to you as opportunities. Watch what you put into it and what you take out of it. I treated myself and life as a beaker, and I studied it. So let's put it this way, let's just assume that all of life is psychosomatic. What you put
Hmm.
into it is what you get back out of it. But what you're getting back out of it right now, you put in at the age of 0 to, let's say, 7 or 8 years. I think we make, and this is a theory, when we're born, the first decision we make when we're about, this long is I'm not capable, which is true. You're not when you're 22 inches long, right? Then the next one we make is because I'm not capable, I can't be responsible. That's decision number 2. That sets up a whole lot of things. And then somewhere in our first year, because we can't get what we want when we want it, we set up the decision, I'm not valuable. And those first 3 decisions, I'm not capable, I'm not responsible, I'm not valuable, set up all the conditions that run into us. So let's take a reactive emotion, a negative one. I'm angry. Well, if I'm angry, why am I angry? What's the point of anger? The anger point is, or purpose is, to give myself permission to be powerful so that I can control my current environmental situation, whatever I'm in. So if I'm angry and I'm powerful, then I can be in charge and capable in the world. Underneath that is the decision, I'm not capable. So when someone is angry, what they're really proving to the world is they want to learn capability, but they're not yet to the place where they give themselves permission to be fully capable. If you want to be a billionaire, if you want to be a millionaire, and you're not there yet, give yourself permission to, and I think there's a book on that, give yourself permission to learn all the skills you need to capability, and then you can work your way through the world so that you can be effective and make, 7, 8, 9 zeros. There. How's that for a story?
So yeah, I mean, and you gave a lot there, and I hope as listeners, it's important that you go back. You have to go back and catch some things because you did give a lot of backstory in that. What I'm curious about, because the one thing you did mention is the fact that you were heavy into the chemistry world, meaning that you actually studied it, but then you were able to apply some of the things that you learned in the chemistry world to business. So, what do you say? Like, would you say was the kind of the thread that made it so you were able to make that transition from chemistry to business? And then also, how did that build your philosophy now? Like the situation you just talked about where you were going through a health scare and then you had to rewire your brain, you had to go through some hypnosis, you had to make sure that you weren't thinking, or your subconscious wasn't thinking anything negative, and you gave yourself permission to give the tools to be ready for these things. Where did you think that line between chemistry and business was created? And I'm asking that because I've been to many different schools. I've had business professors. I've had a lot of different people that are lost when they get to that age that you were referring to, and they think, okay, I got to be a chemistry major, and they think there's something other than a business major. And you're able, based on everything you just said, you're able to align and let people know everything is going to be business. Everything's going to be tied in the business. And, to that, you say what? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So the core of that, and the core of that thought initially at 18 was, if there's an effect in my body, right, the colitis and the bleeding, then there's a
Mm-hmm.
cause. So literally everything in the world that happens has a cause, right? If you're seeing an effect, someone gets to be whatever in the world, right? It means that they've learned the skills behind that. So the cause of that is, what's their purpose? What do they want to achieve? What have they learned so far? What does it take for them to learn something? When I went back to school, so if I dropped out of school for about 3 or 4 different reasons. When I was, what was I? On any rate, I was in my 30s, or my 20s, excuse me, and went back and finished my bachelor's degree started to finish when I was 35. My thought was this. Oh, I've lost my thought here. If your purpose is strong enough, you can conquer anything. It's not force that does it, it's repetition and presence and commitment. Okay? If you're committed to something, you may have to change your methods, you may have to modify it, but if you're the beaker, study what you put in, study what comes out, what are the opportunities. If all of life is a beaker, you can measure the results. Well, your life is the measurement. Does that say it well enough?
That says it excellent. And when you talk about your life, how do you kind of the question would be is like, how do you create it as a measurable? How do you see the results? So let's say there's someone new listening that's brand new to this entire world, doesn't necessarily know where to get started, because I'm sure, again, as you as a person that works with a ton of business owners, the half the battle is they don't know where to even get started, because some of the challenges that they see are so into, like, there's so much that they don't know how to just take it day by day, how to create some measurables, how to just get a result so we can get another result, so we can get another result. So the question would be, what are some examples of measurables that you may have saw, or something that you would suggest for anybody that's listening?
All right. Who was it? Either Stephen Covey or I think it was Stephen Covey said,
Covey,
start with,
highly effective people.
yeah,
Yeah.
start with the end in mind. Okay. What do you want to achieve? And then back up from there. Well, in order to achieve, let's say $1 million in your bank account or $10 million in your bank account, what do you have to achieve? You have to learn how to persuade someone else to buy what you're offering. It doesn't matter what it is, right? So learn how to persuade, learn how to listen. Almost no one listens as well as they could. So if you listen with,
They have iPhones nowadays, and I hate to cut you off, Brad, because now you're really hitting he's really touching some pressure points, folks. All right. Listening, he said it, listening, he made it clear. And the reason I had to stop him there is because I want to make sure I re-emphasize that to you listeners. Listening is easily 95, maybe could be 100% of some of the problem, because we are surrounded by distractions. We are surrounded by so many things that get us off our path, and you start to look at the world and start to think you're entitled, or you start to just be going down a wrong path, not going a right place. So again, sometimes when people really start talking that stuff on this show, sometimes it gets me excited. So I sometimes I have to just break it. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead. Go ahead.
that's okay. Well, there's a skill underneath listening. First, you have to be aware. So if you're present, first skill, and then you're aware of yourself, which is what my colitis taught me. It taught me a lot about this beaker, this Brad, right? It taught me a lot about who I am and what I have to do. So awareness is the second one, presence is the first, awareness is the second, listening is the third skill. Isn't that amazing? It's like, and then if you're listening, you're present with someone else without putting your thoughts in. What are they actually saying? So if my goal is to help someone move from, let's say, $3 million or $5 million a year in their business, or zero, start with where you're at. What do you know how to do well? And what do you want to learn? Start with the end in mind, work back to now. What do you have to learn? Listening is a great skill. It's very, very important. And when you learn how to listen, then you can put all the rest of it into place. Listen to yourself, listen to the world. Now I'm going to have another example here. What I want you to do is list out what are the key character traits that you have to have in order to be successful. Study that. Who are the people that are already successful, and what are their best characteristics? Yes, some of them have got terrible characteristics to go with it, but you don't have to choose those. You've already chosen your worst ones. So pick your best skills and learn your way to them. Every character trait you have is only a habit set. No different than learning how to floss or brush your teeth every day, right? Study that, repeat it, catch yourself, rewire yourself, point yourself in a different direction, and then say, okay, I did that this time. I'm not going to do it that way the next time. And you'll eventually get to the place where after you catch yourself before you do something, let's say you want to never lie. That's a hard one, right? Or you always want to have integrity. Stop yourself after you've done something and say, next time, right? Next time, next time. And eventually you get to the place where it's before you act. And then you can rewire the statement before it comes out, even to the point where if you're going to say something and you know it, you just said it, stop yourself, embarrass the crap out of yourself, and say, that's not
Yeah.
true. This is what's actually true. That
Now, and you're talking, there's so many points that you're saying that I agree with, but I'm also thinking of the business owner who can be stubborn, and the challenges that come up when you try to present this to people. What have been the common challenges that you have seen when it comes to people that simply just don't want to be, like you said, honest with where they are? They want to act like they're better off than they actually are. And I actually just was talking about this on a previous guest I had. I've worked for 6 different gyms, and all this 6 of these gyms, they had owners, and the businesses have gone out under. They no longer exist now. They're now permanently closed, and so much of it was based on what you said. They weren't honest about where they were at. They couldn't be honest with their employees. They couldn't be honest with their staff, and eventually the thing just crashed and burned. So, as you're talking, how do you actually deal with that challenge?
I start with a single question. What do you want more than what you have right now? People have to have ambition, and then they have to have curiosity. And, in addition to being smart, so characteristics are they have to be smart, they have to be ambitious, in other words, drive from where they are to where they want to be. That's important. And they have to be curious. And the fourth one is they have to be kind. Those four things are required to be successful. Now, you can be a horrible person and still be financially successful, but you're not going to be successful in all of your life, because if you're horrible, eventually you'll drive people away. So if you're not listening, that's what you're describing. If you're not listening to your customers, you're not going to get as many as you need.
And I'm glad you made that point, because it's an important point, especially if you're a listener now. He said you drive people away. Okay, this has been the key. Again, I refer to the gym owners, but I've also been in business myself quite a bit, and I've seen a lot of things that go on, whether it's sports, fitness, athletics, education, doesn't matter. When you start driving people away and the word gets around about you and those inner circles start talking, there's no coming back from that, because now you're talking to people that have had interactions with you, and that word starts coming around, and there's just no coming back. So it's so important. Again, like you just said, you can have a lot of financial success but be a horrible person, and these things start coming out over and over. And we're seeing that with the world that we're living in now, that things are being captured on video. And I'm not going to put any names out there, but we have prominent people that are supposed to be leading us, and we're seeing video of them doing things that are like, man, my heroes, all the people that we thought like looked good financially, and now they're not. They're just like really made themselves look small, man.
So,
Well, go
um,
ahead. You had a point. I was good, but go ahead. You had a point.
so I guess another point I want to make is
Yeah,
look at
go ahead.
the things you want to accomplish and build a list of heroes that have already accomplished it. Study who they are and what they did to get there. Study that, right? And then go back and say, okay, which characteristics do I need? And build a list of things that you have a set of goals, right? Where are you in your goals? Where in yourself? And then go after what's it take to attract people in order to have them be engaged, as you said, teamwork, right? Who
Exactly.
you want to draw into your circle so that you can do the things you need to do, because nobody gets to be successful alone. Nobody.
I hear you, man. And with all that, I want to be very respectful of your time and make sure we at least give you an opportunity to put out your services and things like that. So with that, can you just talk a little bit about what you got going on next? If someone's listening in now, how they could work with you, what's the best avenue to get in touch with you right now? Feel free to go ahead and put all that stuff out there.
So I renamed my company in 2017. Maybe it was 16. Stellar Insight, because what I realized was I sold insight. That's what I sell.
Ah,
I
I
listen,
like that, man. I like it.
I
I
sell
like
insight.
it. Yes, I sell insight. It's insight, and breakthroughs. Insights come from, like, the people that have been through it. Man, I like that. That's good stuff, brother.
So my website is stellarinsightinc.com, and people can go to that if they want and sign up for a half hour with me, and it's free. So that's how you can get a hold of me. Set up, it'll put you onto my calendar. You and I get to talk. I love that. So
All right,
brainstorming.
stellarinsight.com. I will include that in the show notes as well. And so the last thing, Brad, the last thing I do to close out all my shows is I want you to use your imagination just a little bit. I want you to pretend you're that young boy. Your dad is telling you to go to all these places. You don't have a GPS. You're watching him do his thing. You're watching him succeed with companies, or you're watching him, see pieces of the companies not where they are. You just found out you have a health scare. So many things going on as the young Brad Smith. I want you to pretend that young boy came into the Zoom room and he's here, and just give him some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
Whatever you think other people can achieve and you want that, don't say no, say yes and go after it. Commit yourself to excellence, commit yourself to at least one more zero in your life, and just go after it. If you're making $10,000, $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, whatever you're making right now, add a zero to it. Where would your life be? Commit to it, go after it, learn your way to it. You're worth it. You can do it already.
Woo! All right, man. I'm ready. Young Brad is ready to roll, man. All right, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.